Hello again, my lovelies, and welcome back to Through the Eyes of Enji, where we're trying to look at 101 films in 365 days to raise money for We Are With You and the Shawbury Village Players. Now, sorry this is a bit late. I decided to take Easter off to take a step away from what is actually quite a lot of time it takes to put these videos together. But I'm back now, wasting my annual leave doing very little, and we're going to try and catch up with a few films. And we're going to start today by going over Underworld. Released in 2003, directed by Len Wiseman, written by Danny McBride, based on a story by Kevin Griveau, Len Wiseman and Danny McBride. Starring Kate Beckinsale as Celine, Scott Speedman as Michael, Michael Sheen as Lucian, Shane Brolly as Craven, and Bill Nighy as Victor. Celine, a human warrior, is entrenched in a conflict between vampires and werewolves while falling in love with Michael, a human who is sought by werewolves for unknown reasons. Underworld is both messy and occasionally problematic. Having not seen the film in quite some time, I was taken aback a little by the aesthetic of being quite so dark and pale in a world with really muted colours. I did wonder if this was a deliberate design choice by the director given the source subject material, and having never read the source material, it was a little difficult for me to judge, and we should probably at this point discuss probably one of the cooler things about the film is that Kevin Griveau, who plays Ray's in the film, co-created the film. Now, he took a class on how to be a screenwriter while getting his master's in genetic engineering after getting a degree in microbiology. He came up with the story and wrote the first treatment of the script, basing it on his own experiences of tension found in interracial dating, and just added a supernatural element. Now, his filmography isn't too extensive. There's lots of bouncers, lots of goons, all playing off his very impressive physical stature and deep voice. But behind the curtain, this is a fiercely intelligent man with a gift for assembling interesting ideas which don't play out very well. He was also responsible for the script for I, Frankenstein, which suffered from a lot of the same problems Underworld does, with strong leads in a not overly interesting story coming off a great idea involving eternal wars, of which we see little of the past, and a weak ending. This was the theatrical cut of Underworld that I'm reviewing, and I'm also going to leave out any discussion of the sequels. I've only ever seen the Rise of the Lycans, and I don't actually remember it at all. Although, in fairness, the day after watching Underworld, I didn't really remember that either. So I've actually had to watch it again this morning before I finished putting this review together. And I think my strongest memories of Underworld when I first watched it, back when I was at university, not long after being introduced to my first gaming sessions of Vampire the Masquerade, and our gaming group watching the film, desperately trying to crow in influences of Vampire into Underworld, which, looking back now, desperately going, oh, this one group is obviously the Camarilla, they're obviously Toreadors, they're obviously Ventru, didn't really work now looking back at it. And again, I can't emphasize enough how dark the film is. All the costumes we've got, and we will get back to those, black or dark browns, and the lighting, even like in the Vampire Mansion, is dark and low, muted colour design. And even in a sequence in a hospital, the hospital setting that we see a few times, but this sequence is in one of the more used areas. I think it's a staff room in a main corridor. It's very dark again. It's muted, and okay, fair enough. This was fairly common in films that were coming out at this time, but even like the likes of Blade managed to get some colour into its ancient temples and its streets at night. Please note, I'm aware that scenes don't happen in daylight because vampires, but we can still have some colour in the world, and I was equally disappointed when I realised the final action sequence was going to play out wading through dark sewers and dark laboratories, because there was a real opportunity to place this final action sequence somewhere else, and old abandoned schools across open graveyards, falling apart spooky mansions, or I don't know, fuck, even a rundown corner of the city. I'm aware that they couldn't really set it to anywhere too fancy, given the werewolves are played out like these underdogs who are fighting against a ruling elite due to a crime of what, now I really think about it, really is quite a clear allegory for interracial dating in the not too distant past. Um, there is a slight elephant in the room with Underworld that I will just identify and make my little confession. When Underworld first came out, I was 18, young, stupid, and horny, and therefore I went to watch the film originally not because of playing vampire, not because of this idea of two ancient races of war, or this clever use of experience of interracial dating, or because the advertising campaign was rammed down your throat everywhere you looked at the time. It was more because Kate Beckinsale was in the film and she was in a very tight leather catsuit. I got dropped into puberty in '93 by Michelle Pfeiffer. Sue me. And while, yeah, it can't really be denied that Beckinsale's character design is 99.9% done for sex appeal, but I have to acknowledge that the rest of the Death Dealers. Really original naming there, guys. Sorry. So the rest of the Death Dealers wear very similar uniforms, which are designed in their job role in mind, rather than just for gratification. But yeah, Beckinsale's costume is, it is what it is. And the film, it's really short as well. This is a film where there's a lot of background lore and information about the characters, various plots and plans and events, which are supposed to have a lot of gravitas and high risk involved for all those involved. But we're not actually given time to fully understand the implications of the actions taken by the characters during the film, and thusly there are actually few characters that are likable in any way or with motives that we can understand, apart from maybe Michael Sheen's Lucius. More on him shortly. Beckinsale's Selena, who's supposed to be our lead, has a very stereotypical werewolves killed my family storyline, and Michael, this character the werewolves are hunting for, who's supposed to be our POV character into the world, just comes across as having no. His personality is he's a doctor. There's nothing else there, and yeah, okay, Michael Sheen's is in a very similar spot to Kate Beckinsale's character, because it's, rather than werewolves kill my family, it was vampires killed my girlfriend. But at least Beckinsale's character is only interested in vengeance for herself rather than taking steps to save her race, whereas Sheen's character is willing to do anything for those means. Now, okay, there may be more expansion here in the sequels, which, can get us digging and improve our understanding and motivations of characters, but I've always held this is quite a flawed way of thinking. If by this understanding, then we shouldn't have cared about Frodo until the Towers, Han until The Empire Strikes Back, or John McClane until Die Hard 2. And yeah, I'm aware there's a director's cut out there which might well give more depth to the characters and shed more light on the events, but your average John and Joan filmgoer aren't likely to see that version. This is an issue which, again, using the example of The Lord of the Rings, when you relegate character development that gives you an entirely new view on a character, I'm looking at you twice, Wormtail. I'm looking at you three times, Faramir. Then you're making a version of the film that might well be the director's pure vision, but is not the version most people are going to see. I watched, again, another one of the reasons this review is delayed so much is I watched the Snyder cut of Justice League recently, which is a film I've been looking forward to for a very long time. And I'm not going to spoil anything talking about the film, because I went in knowing that a character was going to be revealed at the end. And yeah, it's a really nice character design. It's a good way of having that character introduced as being there the whole time. You'll know it when you see it. But watching the Snyder cut, which is a lot better than the Joss Whedon cut by a long stretch, it is. Yeah, it's 4 hours long. Yeah, yeah. It's split into 6 parts and gives the impression of being a mini series, but there's just more there. It's more interesting to watch. It's much more visually appealing. The characters are given more weight. Nobody feels superfluous in this version of Justice League. The Flash isn't just there to make jokes. He is competent, and he does help the story along. And the Cyborg, oh my god, what they've done with Cyborg is just brilliant. They've actually made him a character rather than a plot point. And okay, very minor spoilers. The film itself works great. The last 20 to 30 minutes is the epilogue, and part of the epilogue is what was at the end of Whedon's Justice League, with Lex Luthor meeting up with other characters to start forming the Legion of Doom. And then we have the introduction of another character. This is the one who's been there in the wings the whole time. And then we've also got a follow-on from the Nightmare apocalypse from Batman vs Superman, which was absolutely the worst part of that film, and it's just made so much worse by the introduction of the Joker being in that scene. And if there was ever any doubt that Jared Leto was a fucking terrible Joker, Justice League really nails it home. But this doesn't feel like a film that's going to get barrels and barrels of sequels, which is obviously what was originally planned, because yeah, Darkseid's involved. Steppenwolf, who was the villain in the Whedon version, who looks a lot better, has a lot more of a tie-in to Darkseid, and it is very heavily set up that I partially imagined it would be this Justice League, then the Legion of Doom, and then Darkseid rocking up Thanos style in a third one. And you know, those are films I'd watch because that looks fantastic. But because it's the director's cut, this isn't going to happen. So if you're going to watch Justice League, keep in mind it is a historical relic rather than something that's going to go forward. Although, thinking about it, unfortunately, I find myself using this time to talk about the Snyder Cut because there's not really much to Underworld, which might be another reason why this review is so late. I was really struggling to find anything to say other than it's pretty short, it's really dark, it's kind of dumb. You know, sometimes dumb action is just fun. Willy's Wonderland with Nicolas Cage I watched recently, which gets that. But I got the impression watching Wonderworld there was kind of a clash of direction when this film was being sewn together. You've got really good actors who can add legitimacy to even this most terrible sounding dialogue. And then you've got also really bad effects. You've got a lot of jumping around in slow motion, shooting guns in each hand, which gives off wave of Matrix MV 4 years after the fact. And yeah, Michael Sheen is really good and steals every scene he's in. But he's trying to right a wrong which has never been confronted in a film that is just about werewolves and vampires. And you know, this isn't a terrible idea. Michael Sheen, Bill Nighy in a film about the eternal war between vampires and werewolves. Give me that as the pitch for the film, and yes, I'd watch it. But that's not Underworld. I mean, yeah, okay. At least it's short. But if you're now running to the comments to tell me that it's building up to something much bigger, then I'm sorry, but that doesn't support my review here, because I'm looking at just this one film, and plenty of films I've looked at, Green Lantern, have been set up for sequel, and it's been detrimental to the film. And yes, Underworld is set up for a sequel. They set it up at the end, and the film is constantly making references to other characters who are going to turn up in another film. And it's detrimental because we don't know who these characters are. We don't know why we should give a shit. We don't know why we should give a shit about Bill Nighy until way too late in the proceedings. And I, plenty of films I've looked at, as I say, it's set up for a sequel, but some have such loathsome self-confidence that they don't need to tie up major plot threads. And it's something that really pisses me off. The Force Awakens, I'm looking directly at you because that was just aggravating to the extent. And Underworld, yeah, it's it's short, it's dumb, it's dark, it's kind of boring going through. And I know there are people that love this film. I'm not one of them. I've reevaluated it. I didn't enjoy it. It's setting up for something great that might well never come. You know, like Zack Snyder.